This is Make It Mentionable. I'm Alyssa Patness, and this is the show about being human in a world that encourages us to be robots. I invite you to join me as we journey through the mess, the magic, and the mania in between, because what we can talk about, we can manage. This honest conversation extravaganza includes free-flowing conversations and high doses of vulnerability to remind you that you aren't alone. No topic is off limits, and episodes are designed to leave you smarter, aka more self-aware than when you came. I am so glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Make It Mentionable. I'm your host, Alyssa Patness, and if you have ever felt stuck but unsure about what choice to make, or if you know something is off but you're not really sure what you want instead, or if you're tired of sitting on the fence between decisions, because that is a very uncomfortable place to be, then this episode is sure to have some gems in store for you, because we are talking all about embracing a life of choice. So choice is one of my top values. I live for choice, but that can mean very different things to different people. And so it requires knowing what you want, which is something I have found that so many people struggle with. And it's something that I got interested in because it was something that I struggled with for a really long time as well. And I ended up spending a crap ton of money as a result. So we're talking about knowing what you want, and we're talking about choice. And for context, I want to start with a story. So when I was in my undergrad program, it turned out I could graduate in 3 years instead of 4. And so I was supposed to graduate in May, and December rolled around, and life had thrown some curveballs. The guy I was dating at the time, we'd been together for years, and I was close with his family, and his dad was diagnosed with cancer. And so things were just shifting, and they were unknown, and I wasn't spending as much time like figuring out what I wanted or like enjoying the end of school, because we were doing a lot to help take care of him. And I was splitting time between being up in Phoenix versus being down in Tucson for school. And so December rolled around and grad school applications are due. And neither of my parents went to grad school. I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. They were less on the academic side. The guy I was dating, his parents were both academics. And so I realized grad school is a possibility. And so December rolls around, applications are due, and I just decided to apply. Mostly, if I'm being completely honest, because I had no idea what job I was going to get. And so I was like, well, I'll just have a backup plan. It's December, I graduate in May. I'll at least have a backup plan of going to grad school. So fast forward, I get in, and I like to joke, I don't know if you might have seen this in a bio I've written somewhere, but I joke that I was born out of a social science love triangle because I studied psychology and sociology. So psychology is the individual, sociology is the group. And then my master's program, I decided, probably honestly because the guy I was dating's dad was a communication professor, to pursue communication. In retrospect, I'm super glad that I did, because I use it all the time and I loved that field of study. So for social science love triangle, then communication was like the missing piece, because communication is the bridge between how we deal with our inner world and process it to the outer world with a group. So I get in, and throughout the grad program, his dad ends up passing away, and I was still splitting time between Phoenix and Tucson, and it was a very transitory period in both of our lives. And so it was kind of chaotic. And again, graduation time comes around, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I have discovered through this process that I really like teaching, and I know I want to write a book, and I'm working with authors. And so I'm like, do I need a PhD? And here's the thing, school was easy for me. So in a lot of ways, it was just easier. to keep saying yes to more school than to figure out what I would do differently. So obviously knowing PhD is the last level you can go, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply. And I applied and I got in. And I mean, it was easy to keep saying yes because I wasn't paying for it and I was really good at it. I mean, I had full scholarships, I loved teaching, and I was good at it. But I hadn't taken the time to articulate what I truly wanted for myself. And so I get into this program, and at least this one's at a different school, so it's a different setting and it's a different environment. And I love the people I'm going to school with. Many of them have been on this podcast, or at least a few of them. And at the same time, though, I'd been building my business. I had been starting to work with clients and freelancing. And so it was like these two competing worlds in a lot of ways. And I didn't love the culture of school. Honestly, like grad school is intense. It depends on the program you're at. But in this program, it was like, if you're not spending all of your time researching, like you're doing something wrong. And I just didn't like that. So this pivotal moment in my 20s came when I was like, I don't want to be here. Don't want to be here at all. And so it was December. Like things kept happening in December. And in December of that year, I decided I wanted to quit. But that next semester, there were 3 classes that I had really wanted to take. And they ended up fitting into the picture of what I did for the next few years. And one of them was creative nonfiction, with like the godfather of the genre, and health communication. And I ended up working with healthcare startups for quite a while, and then organizational communication. So I stayed one more semester. Even though I knew I wanted to quit, I made the choice. I was like, yes, I don't want to be here. I don't want to quit, but these classes are important to me. So I made the choice to stay. And still, I was like, okay, well, I don't have a job, but I have freelancing clients, and I'd convinced my dad to be a client. And so I was on a trip in Austin and I loved it. And so I signed a lease for a way too expensive apartment, but I had been doing the work and I had been accumulating clients. And I had faith that I could do it. And so I didn't worry about getting a traditional job. And it's at this point where this like age-long debate of security versus safety comes in. Like a traditional job, in a lot of ways, it prioritizes a sense of security, even though you can get fired, but it's a stable paycheck versus this like search for new clients all the time. But there's a freedom trade-off. And so for me, a life of choice, especially growing up with entrepreneurial parents, has always meant being able to pursue what I wanted and work for myself. And so that's semi the appeal of academia, because, you have summers off. There's a little bit more flexibility in the schedule, but decided I didn't want to be there working for myself. And so for me, a life of choice has really meant the freedom to pursue what I wanted and to work for myself. But for other people, a life of choice might be more synonymous with a stable paycheck. So because when you have that coming in, it might be that you think that the financial security, knowing when the next paycheck is coming in and it being predictable, increases choice for you. And so these two perspectives around what it means to live a life of choice. And I don't think it always has to be one against the other, but the way that we work often pits them against each other. And this is and it's a larger conversation around security and safety and passion. And I think safety is oftentimes one of the reasons why we feel like we don't have as much choice. In a lot of ways, school, like I said, was the safer choice for me because it was predictable. It wasn't unknown. And like, even though the stipend is minuscule, there's still a stipend and I could afford my apartment. But there's a trade-off when we're trading security and safety and passion. And Esther Perel even talks about this in Mating in Captivity in terms of relationships. Like oftentimes when you settle down in a relationship, there's a cost or a trade-off to passion. And so it's something that has to be curated intentionally. And so intention becomes a huge piece of embracing a life of choice. And often the status quo encourages us to lean towards safety, but it's not the only option. And so what does choice look like to you? And the first thing is like, it starts with recognizing we have a choice. And there are times in business when I felt like it would be so much easier just to like go get a job. But I had made this choice to work for myself, and I have the conviction. I had the conviction in that from a young age. And so I show up and I ignore that shiny corporate carrot. And on the flip side, there are people, who are in cubicles and feeling stuck and saying they hate their job and not feeling challenged. And they feel like it's their only choice because there are people relying on you. You have kids. There are bills to be paid. What about the car payment? What about all these things? And so ultimately, what embracing a life of choice means to me is it's not about what each individual decision is in the moment, but it's about remembering that, in fact, in every single moment, I have a choice. In every moment, we have a choice, whether it's easy to think that we do, whether it's easy to see the choice or not. And embracing that allows me to pivot with flexibility when something isn't working. It allows me to recognize areas where something might need to be switched up. It allows me to take responsibility for my life in a way where I stopped giving my power away to other people. And there was a time, definitely, when I continuously gave my power away. I was paying coach after coach after coach. I was looking for strategy after strategy. And there was a running joke that Alyssa has bought a course for that. And it's because I didn't take the time to know what I wanted. It's so easy to fall into other people's ideas when you don't take the time to know what you want. And people are happy to write the script for us. We grew up used to our parents doing it for us. And there's a time when it has to switch. And so rather than looking inward when I was doing that, when I was buying strategy after strategy, thinking that was the answer, rather than looking inward, when I finally quit the PhD program, or when I moved to Austin, or when I moved to Denver, these times when I really knew what I wanted, it was at that point, I wasn't taking the time to turn inward and to know what I truly wanted. And so I just began trying on other people's strategies, one after another, instead of cultivating my own sense of wild and what was possible for me, and exploring what I even believed was possible. And sometimes we definitely need to know what we don't want, but that also traps us in reactionary land, where we're just responding to everyone else's ideas or their dreams or success instead of shaping our own. So thousands and thousands of dollars later, that was a really freaking expensive lesson. It was a lesson mostly in learning to cultivate my own wants, because a strategy works when it's aligned with what you want. The problem I had is I kept looking for other people's strategies, but it wasn't I knew deep down it wasn't what I wanted. So it's not going to work because I'm not committed to it. I don't have the conviction in the same way. A strategy is great when you know what you want. Then you can be okay, I know what I want and I have a specific skill gap in this area. Maybe you're okay, I really know I want to start an email list, or I want to start a podcast, but you have no idea what microphone to use, or you have no idea what email provider to use. And so there's a skill gap, and you go and you get that information and you can test on a strategy. But it's rooted and anchored in this sense of, I know what I want, and I have recognized here's a barrier between where I want to go and what I know right now. That's a great time to invest. And knowing what we want, though, can be challenging because and I've talked about this in other episodes, like we put so much emphasis on our eyeballs. If you even look at how Facebook and Instagram have evolved from having more static text-based features into like full-blown Instagram where everything is image-based or video-based. And so we see, like our eyes shape so much of our experience, but we can only take in so much information, and it gives us a pattern, and it limits our perspective of what we can actually see and perceive. And so it's so easy to take in other people's images that do we actually take the time to consider what it is we want? You know, you see pictures of beach vacations on Instagram all the time, depending on who you follow and what your feed looks like. But in general, you know, laptop lifestyle and all these things we see quite a bit. And so I love a good beach vacation. I love it. I like reading a lot. I like hearing the sounds. I like being by the pool. My mom gets bored. That is not her idea of vacation at all. Like, she wants some more activities. And it's changed slightly throughout the years, but like, no, she gets completely bored. I think she's gone on a true, like, leisurely, do very little beach vacation like twice in her life. And so does someone else's picture of success actually align with what you want? Or do you just feel like you're supposed to want it? Because if it's not what you want and you try it on, you're going to spend a bunch of time realizing that, like, oh, wait, no, this isn't actually what I wanted. This isn't it, and this isn't it, and this isn't it. And you keep trying what other people are doing to see if it works. And if you never take the time to turn inward and recognize, what do I want? What choices are available to me? Then we end up in reactionary land. And that just means that we're spiraling based on what everyone else is doing. And we're only figuring out what we want after we've spent a bunch of time reacting to other people. And so a life of choice is about taking responsibility and recognizing that I always have a choice. I have a choice every minute, no matter what's going on, even if people are dependent on me, even if it's hard, even if I don't see all of the options available to me yet, I have a choice. And again, I'm not saying it's easy at all, because if you're miserable in a relationship, and I've been there, but you've been in that relationship and you've built a life, like, it can be hard. It can be hard to recognize that there are other choices available to you. If you have kids, it's even harder. But the fact of the matter is you still have a choice. So you can choose to accept that you always have a choice or not, but that's the difference between people who make change and people who don't. And here's where I think people get stuck, because you might be listening and you're like, okay, yeah, I know that something is untenable. I know there's an area where I want to make a change. I might even know what I want, but what choices are available to me? Because I feel like I'm stuck here and this is a struggle. And there are like a lot of practical implications of making a change. And so I call these choice points. And identifying choice points can be difficult. Like, I'm not saying it's easy at all, especially when it's clouded by multiple factors. Being in a relationship, if we continue that example, and you're unhappy, but you're thinking about your kids and how they might react. Like, yeah, what are the choice points available to you? You might feel like there are none if you're prioritizing the kids over your own well-being. But by not choosing, like, we're choosing the default. And so it's better to consciously be aware of this and make a choice for ourselves. Otherwise, it's just really easy to start feeling like everything is happening to us. And it's the difference between, you know, let's say you're in a relationship you're not happy with, or in a job you're not happy with, and you're letting all of the other things take precedence over what you actually want. Your choices, like, you can stay, you can leave, you can have a conversation about why you're unhappy. Those are choice points. A lot of times when we value someone else over ourselves, it's just easier to blame the person and be like, well, I don't really feel like I can leave because what about the kids? Or we've spent all of this time, like, I just want it to be better. And we just leave it there. We leave it at this place where no choice has been made. And so you're by default staying in the relationship, but you're not actually allowing yourself to make the choice of saying, I'm staying in this relationship, and taking responsibility of what that means. And so there's a huge difference when we can flip this feeling of like, oh, I'm stuck in this relationship that I don't like, and you're complaining to your friends all the time, versus like, okay, I have looked at the choice points available to me. I can stay, I can leave, I can bring up a conversation right now because I value my kids, because I value the potential. I don't think you should be in relationships solely on potential, but it's something that comes up for many people. So if you value certain things about the relationship, then it's like, okay, I'm making the choice to stay. And then for right then, it's done. And it's not this waffling. It's not blaming other people. It's not feeling like everything's happening to you. It's giving yourself the agency back to recognize that you had a choice, and you have a choice in every moment. And in that moment, you're deciding to stay. And it's the switch from the unconscious to the conscious that opens up more possibility. It opens up more perspective for you to see other things. And I'm by no means perfect at this. When boundaries has been something that I've been working on for years, and Jeff has been great at boundaries since the day I met him. And so he has to remind me at times that I have choice in the moment. And it's something that I constantly am working on. And for me, it was like, what are the choice points? We would get into a conversation and a boundary needs to be set. And it's like, I didn't know what was available because I wasn't as experienced in boundary setting. I didn't know what options were. And so this is identifying choice points is one of the steps along the path where people can trip up. And it makes sense to have some support. It's part of the work that I do, helping people see the possibility and how they can pivot. And it's because these choice points lead to pivots, and pivots over time lead to transformation. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight to make a simple change, or to make a big change. You can change your life with a single pivot. And that starts with identifying choice points and knowing what you want. Because there are so many people who are willing to write the script for us if we don't choose. I'm reading Digital Minimalism right now by Cal Newport, and seriously reevaluating my relationships with social media. I'm in the middle of it. I finished the book, but I'm in the middle of this like social media, not even a detox, but like declutter. I'm not on it right now so that I can identify what I want and what's important to me about each platform without the distraction of it. And YouTube for me doesn't count because I love having the show on video, and I don't get sucked into YouTube. Like, I don't watch a ton of YouTube videos. So to me, it doesn't feel like social media. But I'm not on Instagram right now. I'm not on Facebook right now. I've barely looked at Pinterest, and I haven't been on Twitter for years. And so it's kind of strange because I did two extremely Instagrammable things recently. I walked on the runway for 3 nights of Denver Fashion Week, which was so fun, and I loved the designers I got to walk for. And then I went to Coachella, which I feel like Coachella is designed for Instagram. It's very visually appealing. There are tons of photo spots. It's super fun. So doing these two like very social media driven things, you know, where you can post, you connect, things that like generally get a lot of likes. And I'm not posting about them. I'm not sharing them. And it's been interesting because it was actually really fun at both, not having to worry about it and not having to worry about my phone or feeling the pressure of like, why do I post this? And what's the intention behind it? And so reading this book has opened up some perspectives for me in that realm. But in relation to embracing a life of choice, there are a lot of overlaps because his basic premise is that if we're not conscious about our use, if we don't pay attention to how we want to leverage the platform, then it is so easy for us to fall into the way that they want us to use it. And their entire business model is based on the number of people who are on there and how many hours we spend on there, because they sell our data. And so they want us getting sucked in. They develop features to get us sucked in. And so all of a sudden you go on to like check one thing about your friend's baby, and then 4 hours later you look up and you're like, what happened? Like, where did the time go? And so if we don't look at what choices are available to us, someone else is very happy to write the script. The normal script of opening Instagram is you go on and it's like, okay, top of the feed, here we go, what's new? And then you scroll until you see the last thing that you had seen the last time you signed in, and you like everything along the way. You got to check your DMs, what's going on in stories. Like, they want you looking at all of those things. But through reading Digital Minimalism, one of the things I loved is how many choice points Cal elucidated throughout the book. It's one of the reasons why I liked the structure of the book so much, because it posed an argument, but then it highlighted what choices were available in a different way. And getting from the point of like, okay, I know I want a different relationship with social, but what options are available? Those are the choice points. And that's where people can get hung up. But that's the important piece. That's the piece where it's like, what is actually possible outside this frame, this pattern that I'm constructing the world in. And so in the book, in Digital Minimalism, he talks a lot about it. So it requires intention. And there's this one line in there about intentionality is deeply satisfying. And like, I just lit up when I read it because I love intention. And I just resonated with that so much. I find intention deeply satisfying. So why not be intentional about social media use? And so it requires intention, which requires knowing what you want. And he has a lengthy discussion about knowing what you value, because he says you put the rules in place to support your highest values. And so if the platform supports your value and it's the best platform to support that value, then you use it. And you put some rules around how you experience it so that you're not sucked into the distraction. And so it's the choice points. It's the choice points and seeing what is possible. If you decide you're going to use it, then it's like, okay, well, when you sign in, you don't have to like things. I really liked this point when he brought it up, because I naturally find myself forgetting to like posts, but then my friends who are business owners, I'm like, oh wait, that probably actually helps them. So I need to scroll back up and go like that post. What I naturally find myself doing is if I really like a friend's post, I'll text them and be like, hey, I loved this, and start a conversation about it. So I naturally found myself not liking things as much. And then this gave me more understanding of that and further reason to not feel like I have to do it. Like, I don't want to just willy-nilly fire off dopamine hits. Another example is, okay, you only look at direct messages for a half an hour in the afternoon, or you only sign in on Thursdays, or you use something like Later to post instead of actually signing into the app so that you don't get distracted. These are the choice points available. And then you determine what works for you and for your values. And sometimes choice points are hard to see because we do things the same way. We're wired to do things in patterns so that we're not having to relearn how to tie our shoe every morning. But when we've been doing something the same way for so long, sometimes we need help in seeing new perspectives and new possibilities. And that's why I write the type of articles that I write in the Peel. It's about opening up possibility and perspective so that you can pivot and pursue what you want. And other times, we need to stop looking for other people to give us the choice points and identify the choice points for ourselves. And so a lot of what's in there are questions back to you to help figure out, okay, what are the choice points available to you? And this is where one of my favorite concepts comes in around discomfort, which is procrastisnackin. So many times when something uncomfortable comes up, we end up going to the fridge. And I call it procrastisnackin. It's procrastinating by going to the fridge and getting a snack. And I recognized myself doing this a few years ago. I recognized it as a pattern. Whenever I was going to sit down and do something that was new or uncomfortable, or that like my brain, I just didn't want to push the boundaries of, I would go to the fridge. And when I stopped that, not even when I stopped it, when I became aware of it, I could pivot in the moment and I could say, wait, am I doing this because I'm uncomfortable, or am I doing this because I'm hungry? Because what I noticed was over time, I was distorting my relationship with hunger. I couldn't tell if I was hungry or not, because I had wired myself to think, okay, when I'm uncomfortable, go to the fridge, get a snack. At least they were healthy snacks, but still not good. And so when I brought that to awareness, I was able to give myself more choice in the moment because I was aware of it. And then I could say, wait, yes, I'm going to distract myself right now, but as soon as I go get that keto hazelnut butter cup, I am coming back and I'm going to do this. Or I would be like, okay, I'm going to sit through this discomfort and then I'm going to go get the hazelnut butter cup. Or I'm not hungry, dinner's in 2 hours, I can wait. Sit here, work through the discomfort. And it doesn't mean that identifying choice points every time is uncomfortable. Like sometimes we see a choice point and instantly feel convicted. Like when I got a tattoo, I knew I wanted it, and I messaged the guy I wanted to do it, and I was like, hey, can you do this? I knew I wanted an X-ray of a flower. He drew it up. 2 weeks later, I walk in, see it for the first time, and boom, 2 hours later, have a tattoo. Other times, the conviction happens by having the courage to just make a new choice consistently for a few days or a few weeks. Currently I'm trying to drink more water, and I don't have a strong conviction around drinking more water, even though I know it's beneficial. And so I'm having to make the choice to fill up a certain amount of glass water bottles in the fridge every day. And I'm just doing it. I committed to the change, but the conviction around it being amazing for me, honestly, is not there yet. But I'm committed to the change. And so I'm taking the steps consistently, filling up my water bottles, putting them in the fridge so that I can cultivate the conviction as I see results and it builds momentum. It's okay if it's not there from the start. There is, however, huge power in flipping our mindset from feeling like this is happening to me, I'm stuck here, this isn't working, I'm miserable, this is what life is destined to be like, to I'm aware there are other options. And recognizing that you have a choice in every single moment. Every single moment, there is a choice available. There are multiple choices available. And the ability to go from that place of like, I'm stuck here, I don't like this is what life is destined to be like, to I'm choosing this right now. Like I'm choosing to stay right now. Or you know what? I know I don't like this, which is why I'm choosing to do one thing differently every day. I know I don't like that I haven't learned how to play the piano yet, so I'm choosing to practice 5 minutes a day. It's not where I want to be. It's not how much I want to be doing it, but I'm making that choice. There's always a choice available to us. And being able to flip from this is happening to me to wait, I'm aware of what's going on. I'm aware how I feel about it. I'm aware it may not be what I want, but I'm making this choice. Or so I'm making this choice. And this is like one of the most powerful things. I'm obsessed with self-agency because it is people talk about empowerment a lot. And to me, this is the most empowering thing because it's not sourcing your power from an external source. It's sourcing it from your internal battery, your internal source, and recognizing that you have a choice and that you don't have to do things the way that they've always been done. And it doesn't even have to be like this grandiose choice point. It can be like a simple choice point of, I'm trying to eat healthier, so I'm going to eat celery with peanut butter right now instead of eating a peanut butter cup. Small choice points lead to pivots that lead to transformation. And that's how we get to the substantial shifts. It doesn't have to be this complete overhaul of structure all the time. It can be these small moments of taking radical responsibility and realizing that in every moment we have a choice. And the last thing I want to add to this, because where we get tripped up, I've noticed from the social media conversation and reading Digital Minimalism, is around like the fear of missing out then. Because FOMO is real, it's real. And when we make a choice, it means we're saying no. That's why so many people have a hard time niching down in business, because it means you're saying no to things. But saying no often gives you more choice. Saying more often gives you more freedom to explore things in a way that you want. And so in Digital Minimalism, Cal talks about like the maximalist approach is to try everything because you never know what could be good there. The minimalist approach is to say no to a bunch of things to figure out what works for you and be fine missing out on the rest. And that resonates with me a ton. And it's cultivating confidence in saying no, though, and being able to start seeing the power of what saying no and putting constraints can lead to. And so if you're worried about how saying no can influence it, I get it. And what I've recognized is that by saying no to certain things, it actually opens up more possibility in a roundabout way because we don't have as much stimulus for other people's ideas, for other people's versions of success. Instead, we're going back internally more often and recognizing like, I'm saying no here, but why am I saying no? I'm saying no because I made this choice and I feel grounded in that. And then it becomes way easier to say no. I'm saying no to getting coffee with you because I promised myself 3 days a week this week I was going to write. And I really want to write a book. And so I don't have time for that right now. And I'm sorry, our friendship is important. Can we move it out 2 weeks? And then you're prioritizing yourself and still focusing on building connection. That's the power of saying no. And that's where recognizing our choice points and making the conscious choice allows us to get more of what we actually want. So I want to know, where are you sensing you want to change or shake something up? Where are you sitting on the fence, that uncomfortable fence that is poking you in the butt? Where are you sitting on the fence? And what are some choice points you may not have been seeing? It starts with knowing what you want and sitting down and cultivating that and then looking for choice points. I know it's uncomfortable. Avoid the trap of procrastisnackin. Try and sit through the discomfort and look at those choice points. Sometimes it might be really easy to see, and other times it might be uncomfortable. So what are some choice points you may not have been seeing? If you want to get better at knowing what you want, then sign up for the Peel, because I write about this pretty frequently. You can go to alyssapatmos.com/the Peel. And if you want to join the conversation, I want to hear from you. I want to know, where are you sensing what you want to change or shake something up? And what are some choice points you may not have been seeing? Come share them with me. Join the conversation at alyssapatmos.com/show. You'll see this week's episode and leave me a note in the comments. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've just finished listening to another episode of Make It Mentionable with me, your host, Alyssa Patmos. If you're looking for more in between episodes, then sign up for The Peel. It's my free newsletter that gives tips for how to navigate whatever life dishes. And it's also the place where I share the juiciest of stories. To check it out, head on over to alyssapatmos.com/the Peel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.